My name is John Kellner. I'm the district attorney for the 18th Judicial District. That's Arapahoe, Douglas, Elbert, and Lincoln counties, representing about 1.1 million people. Before I get started talking to you about what we're doing to tackle fentanyl in our communities and hold people accountable that peddle this poison, I gotta say a few words about Andrea Thomas as well. Andrea has turned pain and grief into action. She has taken something that would knock most people down to the ground and out for the count. She has turned her pain into leadership and action. And Andrea, you are making a difference here, not just in Colorado, but across the entire country. And I thank you for that.
The other way for our future kids.
And one of the things that's devastating about this epidemic is not just the lack of coverage that you sometimes don't see, right? But it's those numbers. Just thinking about these numbers, it's hard to talk about because behind each one of these numbers and statistics is a real person. Over the last couple years in Colorado alone, we've lost over 1,600 Coloradans to fentanyl. Now, just a few miles from where we're sitting, where we're gathered here today, is Denver South High School. Denver South High School enrollment is about 1,600 kids. That is the scope of the loss that we have faced in our state. Literally losing the entirety of what is a high school in Denver. Last year alone, it was about 900 individuals that we lost to fentanyl.
Speak up.
Can you hear me all right? Thank you. The statistic, though, that gets me at my core as a father, as a prosecutor, is that 29 kids between the ages of 10 and 18 were lost in last year's school year alone. 29 children. The things that stand out to me are a kid in Colorado Springs who dies at her desk, 2 brothers who die from taking 1 pill in 1 single night. Another one that strikes me is a 16-year-old girl named Hannah. Now Hannah, I've come to know her mother, Nikki, throughout these last few months. Hannah was a 16-year-old girl who had everything in front of her, and when the COVID pandemic hit in the March of 2020 and schools shut down, she lost her social network. She lost the grounding that kept her anxiety in check. But over the next few months, she spiraled. She started to lose control. And in December of 2021, her mother finds Hannah in her bedroom on her bed, not breathing. She does everything in her power to revive her little girl. Because that little girl had her entire life ahead of her. She was kind, she was loved, she was a protector for her brother. She was the kind of kid who, if you were at school and you were the new kid and nobody knew you, she would reach out and make sure that you had a place to sit, somebody to sit next to and talk to. That's what we're losing in our state, is the future of possibilities, the future, our kids. And that trend continues right now. As just mentioned, in Aurora, about 2 weeks ago, a 13-year-old child lost to fentanyl, yet again. What's missing, though, what is often overlooked, is not just the loss of life, but the impact on our entire community, on crime across the board, and what is happening because of illicit fentanyl. Violent crime is up double digits in our state over the last 2 years alone. Property crimes are up double digits. Car thefts are up 80-something%. Murder was up over 40% across our state. And so much of it can be tied to illicit fentanyl. Just 2 weeks ago, as district attorney, I worked in this operation called Cross Country. It was with our federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. And what our goal in this operation is to basically find at-risk kids that are out living on the streets, that are runaways, and try to get them back into a community of support. Because so many of these children are at risk for commercial sexual exploitation and sexual trafficking. We found over 30 kids in the Denver metro area at risk. we found 11 children that were being trafficked and preyed upon by pimps and predators. And one of the stories that stands out to me is this. There was a girl, we were looking for, a teenager, trying to find her and get her some support and help. They found her outside of a shopping center, a nice neighborhood, nice area. She had just smoked fentanyl. And as the officers arrived to try to help this young lady, she starts to suffer those effects of poisoning. She had to be taken in an ambulance and given Narcan to save her life. And that's the kind of story you don't hear about. How fentanyl is impacting the entirety of our community across the board and how it is affecting crime. You know, in my district, we're trying to do something about it. We're not just trying to help people who are addicted to fentanyl by getting them access to resources and treatment. We're going after the dealers. We are doing that. A couple months ago, we seized over 110,000 fentanyl pills, indicted 19 individuals associated with a drug trafficking organization out of Mexico, here in our community. They had over 28 guns, 100-round magazine drums, hand grenades, body armor. That's the kind of potential violence that circles around this drug trade that is being unchecked as this poison flows into our state. Just a few months ago with the DEA, we did it again. We seized over 200,000 fentanyl pills, indicted 8 more people, seized 4 more guns from a drug trafficking organization. People that are intent on profiting off of selling this poison. And inside these pills, among what we seized, they had a bunch of pink pills geared towards children. The DEA special agent in charge, Brian Besser, we talked about this. He said, you know what we're starting to see? Is we are starting to see flavored pills geared towards a younger audience. Again, trying to rope in kids and get them addicted to this poison. And we know what happens the longer this addiction goes on. It is Russian roulette, because one pill can kill. In the courtroom, my team in the 18th Judicial District, we're doing what nobody else has done before. We took one of the very first cases to trial where we prosecuted a guy who gave fentanyl pills to a 16-year-old girl. He had these kids come over, a bunch of teenage girls, offering them a good time, gave them alcohol, and gave them fentanyl pills. Now, they didn't know what they were taking. And as one of these 16-year-old girls starts to be affected, starts to have that overdose from the poison, she's lying on a couch. He sees it, and he does nothing. Doesn't pick up the phone, doesn't call 911, doesn't help her in any way. That girl died. We prosecuted him. He was convicted for manslaughter. He was convicted for sexual assault on a child, for distributing drugs like fentanyl, and sentenced to 64 years in prison. That is what the dealers deserve. I wish that was everything that I could tell you about of what we're trying to do to hold these people accountable. But just a few months ago, another man, a low-level dealer, and they like to say, well, the low-level dealers don't really have an impact on people in the same way that the big-scale ones do. Not true. This guy had a bag of blues laying around, and a 3-year-old child, as children are wont to do, sees something that looks like a jelly bean and puts it in his mouth. That 3-year-old child had to be given, I think, 5 doses of Narcan to reverse the effects. We prosecuted him, convicted him of drug distribution and of child abuse, nearly killing that kid. That man is pending sentencing right now. That is what we need to be doing as law enforcement, tackling this problem. We cannot let these drug dealers feel like they can operate with impunity in our state. Now, I am here to tell you today, I am with you all the way. You have an opportunity here today to build on this pain, to turn it into action. Because what we saw at the Capitol last year, this year, when they had the Fentanyl Accountability and Prevention Act, wasn't enough. We need more action. We need more tools in law enforcement to hold the people accountable who are peddling this poison. And while they made strides in turning back the clock of that very lamentable decision from 2019 to basically decriminalize a lot of possession of fentanyl, it didn't go far enough. We need you all to join us at our next session, to go back to the Capitol and demand more action. because they cannot ignore you. They cannot ignore all of these photographs of people that we have lost in our state. So I'm asking you, turn that pain, turn that anger into action and advocacy. Prevent the next fentanyl overdose death. Prevent the next fentanyl poisoning. I will be with you every step of the way. Thank you. God bless you all. We're going to make some changes in Colorado, folks. Bottom line is this. We are not going to cede Colorado to the dealers and the people that are poisoning our kids. We are going to fight back. Together, we are going to get this done. Thank you all so much.